How long do you see the 4-year cycle in crypto repeating?
Well, it's kind of getting longer, right? So we had a 2-year bear in like 2013, 2014. Then we had like a 1-year bear, 2017 to 2018. Now we've had, maybe a year and 3/4 in 2021 till now. So it's like you used to never be able to be down on Bitcoin if you held for 3 years. Now you can be down if you held for 5. So in theory, cycles are elongating. However, the 2017 to 2018 year bear being shorter than the 2013 to 2014, 2015 one is like counter. So there's nuance to this. I mean, Bitcoin and crypto doesn't exist in a vacuum. General macroeconomic theory and risk on versus risk off asset investing behavior really moves these markets. So if stocks are just going to go down for a while, it makes it hard for the rest of crypto, the larger ones at least. So, I mean, let's be serious. Most coins are down massive. Almost all coins are down massive. But if you go up 10,000x, down 20x is like fine.
Do all of your girlfriends receive a complimentary Richard Hart was right t-shirt after a sleepover?
You know what? That sounds like a good idea. I think they could think of better gifts, but it's not a bad idea. I have some interesting political ideas for you guys. Want some interesting political ideas?
Yeah, sure. Tell us.
I don't think you'll be able to use any of these, but you might be able to. I don't know. So I think if you want good elected officials, and those elected officials are chosen from a pool of people that are running, if better people run, then you get better electorate. How do you get better people to run? You pay them more. So I think most people that want to be really wealthy, they're not going to go into politics because the pay is bad. It's not good. It also restricts how much fun you can have in your life. You start to do anything spicy, you get blown out, So I think that paying elected officials more would be a way to get better candidates, and then you might get better people in office.
You should either pay them more or pay them less.
Yeah, maybe.
Now it's precisely the wrong intermediate.
Right. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because if you pay them less, then you get people who are already
just care, who are already successful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
But this is precisely wrong. I agree, because it stimulates kind of career politician.
Yep. So then the other problem that you have is, so now you're even if you have the dumbest voters possible, at least they're more likely to choose someone good because a better quality person is running for office. Yep. Now so let's say there are better and worse systems of voting. So in the United States, we use the worst voting system called first past the post, which means that extremists are elected. So whoever gets 51%, they're going to win. So democracy is served properly if 51% vote to gouge out the eyes of the other 49%. Obviously a bad idea, but by the rules of democracy, that's what you get.
But I don't think that leads to more extreme voices. I think it leads to the common denominator, the largest common denominator, because everyone moves to the center. This is what we've seen with the Republicans and the Democrats. There's no difference at all between Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama. It's all the same. I mean, Trump was different, but then Biden restores it again. Yeah. I think it's just it's the same. It's one party.
I know what you mean. Yes, we have a very
with
non-diverse
proportional representation like we have. You have new ideas.
Yeah.
It's like a free market.
Well, this would be an example. So proportional representation is an example of getting more diverse stuff.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if you instead used a ranked list voting system, which we do not use in the United States, so if you want to get the least amount of data from a voter, you just say, give me one name. And that's what we get currently. But could we get more data from the voter? Yes, we could get a list. Okay, if you can't get this guy, who do you want second? That guy. Okay, if you can't get him, who do you want? This guy.
Yeah.
And you get everybody's list, and you combine those lists, and you can end up with somebody that's not everybody's favorite, but everyone likes enough that you can get consensus behind. Instead of the guy winning, half the people like a lot and half the people hate violently, and then it's very hard to get consensus because he needs to work with other people to get things passed. Like, in Congress, you need 2/3 to get things passed sometimes, or in the Senate at least. I'm not an expert on these things. But so in governance, you need consensus to make progress. And if you have a voting system which tends towards choosing extremists over people that are the same, now this is one of these things about nuance. What you're saying is true. Most people tend to have the same beliefs. And yes, the left and the right are really just like corporate light and corporate strong. There's no labor. There's no green. There's really corporate and corporate in the United States. Those are the only two parties we really have. And they're both doing the same things. They're both blowing up people in Afghanistan. They're both stepping on your rights. They're both doing warrantless wiretaps. Like they're doing almost the same stuff. So I get that, but that's not a particular function of the system of voting. So I know ranked list is better, and there are a lot of countries that use it. They probably use it here. I wouldn't be surprised.
But what the danger of that is that you get the most boring guy.
I don't think you get the most boring.
This is what happens in the Netherlands.
Really?
If you look at our previous prime ministers, they're all among the boring people, the most outstandingly boring person. We've had that across the board for decades. And I think it's typical for lots of
You might be right.
democracies.
I don't know.
So,
I mean, I would need to look a little bit more into this because
My view is that the only sensible way to speak of democracy is to talk about referendums and direct democracy.
no.
To put a single specific question to the people. Like, do you want this or do you want it not?
This comes to my third point. So my
I thought
triumvirate.
we were skipping the third point. We're always going to do the fourth.
The first one was we're going to pay more to get better people running for office.
Right.
The second was we're going to use a better voting
Yes,
system,
no,
choose
no,
them.
I
The
was
third one
paying
is voting tests. Most people don't deserve to vote. And this one's the exciting one.
Yeah.
Most people make poor decisions. And actually choosing who is not only capable but will do a job better is a very hard skill set. And so, most people shouldn't be voting on who gets to be in charge because they'll make the wrong decision. They vote against their own interests. You see this all the time.
The weird thing is that if we would design such a test in the Netherlands, we would most probably exclude my voters. So the weird thing is that I've come to discover
why?
this.
Why?
The higher people
Training.
are educated, the more susceptible they are to propaganda. It's very weird. It's a very weird paradox that I haven't discovered to why it exists. But if people have an academic degree, they're very likely to believe literally everything that the government and the mainstream media tell them.
Yeah.
Whereas if they are relatively uneducated, they're much more likely to think for themselves. So perhaps they won't pass the test that I don't know exactly what kind of test you would design, but it's a typical kind of.
It's super dangerous, right?
Right.
Like,
Well, I'm all for it if I can design the test.
Yeah, right.
That
Yeah,
used to be
like-
my typical answer to that. But the weird thing is, and I haven't come around to this, but if people have been
So
following,
can we go? Do you have an idea of something that just everybody got wrong recently? So we could look into like
So
the
climate
specifics
change,
of it. Okay.
the climate change thing.
Yeah.
It's or COVID. It's the same thing. It seems to be that all across the world the elites are in agreement about these two things.
Right.
That climate change exists, that it is dangerous, that it is caused by man, and we must reduce carbon dioxide emissions to fix it.
Right.
And all steps of these are ill-informed, irrational, stupid. They're not backed by facts and so on. The same with corona, the COVID virus, that it's super dangerous, which is not, that the lockdowns work to prevent it from spreading, which they do not, that vaccines work against it, which they do not, and that QR codes are sort of going to save us from that, whereas that's the beginning of a mass surveillance system that we've seen in China. But all of the elites and all of the newspaper readers and the highly educated academic people, they all go along with these two massive mysticist ideas.
Yeah, it's one of these things where like, if you're young, COVID presents very little risk to you. If you're old, it presents risk, but so do all the other diseases we have out there, like flus and colds and things. And then The counterpoint for the COVID stuff is I see people present like stats from ICU, like who's in the hospital, and then who's in the emergency room, and then who's on a ventilator. And then I haven't had a chance to analyze whether these particular stats are accurate or not, but then they show that like the people that are like, if you get the vaccine, then you are less likely to be annihilated and be in the ICU or on a ventilator. And maybe it's true. But I know that if you neither get the spike protein from a vaccine or from the virus, that's the best outcome. You're not going to have any side effects.
Yes.
Specifically what?
What? He's acting like he doesn't know what any of the code is. Why is he doing that?
It is my personal observation that I think he is potentially have abandoned the idea to do it, just because of what I have seen on the conference the other day. He's the questions that were asked, he couldn't really come up with anything that's any sort of roadmap for pulsechain, which is unfortunate because I have a lot of friends that actually were eagerly waiting for this thing to launch. Why?
Yeah, we all are.
If he's lying about it, I mean, we have no idea whatever can happen to a person's personal life, or whether he's lying or not. We just do not know. What we do know is that it isn't coming anytime soon, doesn't appear to be, and it appears to be that he's not interested. Now, we can only speculate why he's not interested. Perhaps he's worried that the HEX price will dump if it launches in a bear market. So that is one speculation. The other speculation could be the SEC now has both Pulse and HEX on the radar, and maybe they have advised them not to do anything until this case is settled, which is also a possibility. So things change.
Did you say it's impossible for him to not know? Like when he was trying to translate the code, do you think it's impossible for him to not know what he was reading?
What he was reading specifically,
like when he was going through the code, like it seemed like he didn't know what the hell he was reading or how to translate it. From my knowledge, if you don't understand something, you can't explain it. So is it impossible?
But here's the thing: if you're a project lead for a project, you have to know what's going on, even if you do not understand the code. So the questions that were asked at the conference were not about the code. It was about, just the roadmap, and the roadmap isn't coming. And his body language and what he said told me, and this is my personal opinion, I could be wrong, it told me that he is not even talking to his developers. Maybe there are no developers. Who knows? Maybe the Ethereum 2, which is the proof of stake, is a lot more complicated, and they need to start from square one. Now, if I were to launch a chain, I would say that forget the world's largest airdrop. It already happened on the Ethereum POW. Let's just forget this whole idea about copying the state. If people are worried about hacks not being on the new chain, well, you can airdrop the new hacks on the new chain just by looking at the hacks contract on Ethereum. It's actually very easy. It can be done in about 5 minutes. So nothing really needs to be copied state-wise. So I think this whole idea of giving free stuff or a copy of stuff you have on Ethereum seemed like an attractive idea for marketing, but ultimately it has no value. And we see that, for example, USDC on Ethereum POW has no value. So why would it have value on Pulse chain? Perhaps he thought it would have value, but maybe he realized that it has no value, and therefore they're desperately trying to come up with new ideas in terms of what to do. Now, we do know that there's quite a bit of money in the sacrifice pools that were supposed to be used on Pulse chain and whatnot. However, with the news about it, the SEC, this makes it harder to do, because that makes Pulse pretty much Pulse was given to people who gave money to some wallet, and now this money will be used to generate more value. If that is the case, the SEC will have no problem ruling that Pulse is a security and was sold to the investors. So this whole sacrifice idea is not really true sacrifice. It's actually, people are full of expectations, and nobody's fooled that just because we call it a sacrifice, it really is an investment with the anticipation of profit. If SEC has engaged with Richard and told him, hey, if you do this, we don't even have to do much and to deem it a security, so you may as well just stop everything. And so that could be the situation. So I don't think he's lying. I think he's not saying certain things that are specifically personal and private to him.